Hi, I'm Franki. Welcome to Business on the Rise.
This podcast is your playbook to learn everything you need to know to launch, grow, and fund your brand.
Today, we're talking about something that's really uncomfortable. What happens when we die or when our loved ones leave us to die? It's important to talk about this because we need to protect our loved ones. We need to protect our business partners and associates. So today I'm talking to Nor Fazlina, CEO of Maybank Trustees. She breaks it down for us in layman terms. She talks about will, trust, and estate planning. And what that means is what we can do to make sure that our loved ones are protected and guarded. So let's hear it from Faz. Good morning, Faz.
Hi, good morning, Franki.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me here.
No, I'm honored to have somebody like you to be here. Selfishly, I'm on a quest to be a lot more financially literate.
Okay.
Very selfish reasons here. But I think I also want to send a message out there to women personally and in a corporate or if you are an entrepreneur, let's get to know finance a little bit bigger and deeper.
Okay.
For our sakes.
All right.
So for those of you joining us, can you please introduce us?
Okay.
Who you are, what you do, and your role as the CEO of Maybank Trustees.
Okay, it's a big role.
Yes.
But yeah. Well, I started 20 years ago, right? So then you can gauge how old am I now.
Very, very young.
I graduated in University Malaya in mathematics.
Oof.
Okay. And I started my career actually with Maybank. And specifically with Maybank Trustees.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was there for a few years, and then I moved to CIMB, and I came back in 2019. And I'm being given a task to take care of the subsidiary of the Maybank Group. I started off as a COO, and now here I am as a CEO for the subsidiary. And if you follow Maybank under their M25 plus mission, we want to be the best for people. We want to take care of everyone. And that's where our tagline, humanizing financial services. And of course, when it comes to my part of business, I want to help people to understand what estate planning is all about and to educate them. It's more of making sure that people have enough information about this whole topic so that they can make an informed decision.
Very, very important.
It is.
Let's talk a little bit more about Maybank Trustees. When you use the word trustees, what does that mean? I mean, I kind of understand it, but probably not to the extent that you do.
Yes.
So what is estate planning, which is one of your services? You talk about corporate trustees and partnerships as well. Take us through it one by one and treat me like I'm a 10-year-old that doesn't know anything about finance.
Okay. So, as you know, Maybank Trustee is a subsidiary of the group, one of the subsidiaries of the group. The word trustees, it's really heavy, right? For those people who don't really know what it is. It sounds like people do know because it starts with the word of trust.
Yes.
In Malay, we say pemegang amanah, right? So what does that mean, right? So that means you are being entrusted, to hold assets for people. And in the event of anything happens to that particular person, then we are here as the trustees to take care of the assets. And to distribute as per your wishes. So that is if that is clear as to how
Yes.
what is trustees is all about,
Yes.
right? So basically, in a layman term, we take care of people's assets, or I would want to say we are also the financial guardians,
Nice. I like that.
right? Because when you talk about finances, right, you talk about investment. So it's all about you are growing your wealth, you're accumulating your wealth. Once you've done that, you need to protect them. And of course, Frankie, there's two things in life that you cannot run away: death and taxes.
Oof.
Right?
Heavy.
Yeah. So it's not a what if situation, it's when that happens, right? How do you then ensure that whatever assets that you have grown, accumulated, and you have protected them, right? How do you ensure that it is being distributed as per your wishes, and to make sure that it goes to the intended person, right? Because let's face it, that this is something that we must talk about it.
Yeah.
But this is also a topic that nobody wants to talk about it.
No.
Yeah, because it fills with emotions.
Yes.
Right? And nobody wants to talk about death, right?
No, it's uncomfortable.
It is still uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I would say 20 years ago, Frankie, people really don't want to talk about it. Like if you mention about it, some people might say that, are you expecting me to die soon? Right? But I think because unfortunately, we have situation where we had cases like MH17 and MH370.
Yes.
Yeah. That really opened up people's eyes that death can happen anytime. Right? And of course, COVID has taught us many, many lessons,
yes.
right? Bigger lessons that crisis can happen overnight.
At any point of time.
And any point of time, right? And not necessarily in Malaysia. You just talk about COVID, it's worldwide, right? COVID itself has just, made everyone paralyzed, right? So how do you want to make sure that you're well prepared when the eventuality happens? How do you ensure that your loved one is being cared for, or even your good self, for that matter, because you're still living? People tend to forget that we always talk about death. We always talk about family members. What do we want to give them? How much we want to give them. But we fail to realize that, when we're still around, we might need help too.
Yeah.
Right? We are in a era where technology has advanced, medicines has advanced, and we are all, alhamdulillah, we are all living longer, right? But the question here is, are we living better? Right? So this is where we have to come in and be prepared to this sort of eventualities and to take care of yourself during your lifetime. And if anything were to happen to you, for example, if you've been diagnosed for Parkinson's or Alzheimer, how do you deal with your asset when that situation happens? How do you deal with your business if you're an entrepreneur? Right? Because you need to have some plan in place.
That's a very good topic that you've just hit. I'm an entrepreneur, and a lot of the people listening in are, entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah.
We don't often in our business plan talk about business will. We didn't even know about it. We don't think about it. I certainly didn't think about it. And I'm in a business with my business partner, Gaia, and we also have an investor who invested into our business. So there's actually 3 people within the company.
Yeah.
And only recently, while I was doing my research, I came across business will. And that kind of woke all of us up, because if anything were to happen to me or to any of my partners, that will just create not just conflict, but I don't know, just chaos,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Yeah.
So why don't people know this? And if they do, why don't they do something about it? And if they know now, so shall we go to a place like Maybank Trustees and say, Faz, here's my business. Can you please help me sort out my business will while we are all still alive? And again, what happens if one of us is deceased? What happens next? Can you just take us through the whole process of a business will?
Yeah. Okay, from business perspective, yes, Frankie, come to me.
Okay.
And I will
I
advise you.
shall.
Yeah. So, okay. So, like I said earlier, even though you're an entrepreneur, you're an individual.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And again, to talk about anything that not related with business,
Mhm.
and more so on this part of area, even though subconsciously I think we need to deal with this.
Yes.
Why people still don't look at it and put more attention to it is simply because it is still attached to emotions.
Yeah, I'm quite
Right?
sensitive and
So
emotional.
when that happens, then that's when the procrastination comes
Yes.
into play, right? I know it's important to do it, but the but is always there. There's so many buts there,
Yes.
But you have to think about, okay, so who's going to run my business if I'm not around? Whether my family members are going to get into the business.
Yeah.
Whether my partners can work together with my family members if I were to have the intention of to pass on my business to my family members, right? Now, then the questions of your partner then, will your family member be able to make that business decision as how you could make?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So because of all these questions that runs around among the partners, then that's when they said, okay, I know it's important, but let's focus on business first. Right?
Yes.
Because like I said, nobody wants to talk about this topic, but I think what has happened thus far in terms of what's happening, and as we all know, death is certain. You just have to make that conscious decision to talk about it, because whether you like it or not, it's either now or later. Somebody has to face that, right? So in the course of doing so, of course, having things documented is good, because nothing beats when you have something written, right? So this is where I always emphasize on on having documents in place, especially for the entrepreneurs, because this will help to manage conflicts, right? Now, coming back to you as an entrepreneur, right, or anybody as an entrepreneur, any business owners,
Yes.
right? When you have a business, you would have a plan.
Yeah.
How do you plan? You start the business and everything. So any plan, there must be some exit strategy. And I think from business perspective, you could think about either to sell or to pass down.
Yeah.
Right? But I think that conversation is very important to have among the partners.
Yeah.
So that if, let's say, at some point while you're still alive, you said, I don't want to be in the business anymore, how do I exit? So you have that plans.
Yeah.
But I think you have to delve deeper that if anything happens to me, if I'm not in a capacity to make decision anymore, right? How do we want to run this business? So this is where the buyback share sell agreement is very important. Basically, to deal with your shares during your lifetime, because you've mentioned just now about the business will. So I'm going back to the drawing board.
Yes.
What is will?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
A will is a testament of your representation. It is your representation after your lifetime.
Yeah.
Right? And that document will only takes into effect when you pass on.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're still around, you need other document to help in terms of business exit strategy.
Yeah.
Right? But if anything happens to your business, that it is good that you have your will written down now and that's where you put down your wishes as to how your shares to be dealt with if you're not around.
Okay. Can I just ask there, because we're talking about both personal and business wills,
Yes.
right? So let's just use me as an example. I am an individual. I have my personal will. I don't have a business will. Can I incorporate the two together?
Yeah.
Should it be incorporated together? And should it be under one company, one trustee to incorporate the two together?
Yeah. So when we talk about will, right, as I mentioned earlier, it's your testament. It only takes effect after your lifetime.
Yeah.
Right? It's actually a piece of document that takes care of everything about yourself, your personal and your business.
Okay.
Right? So if you ask me, for any normal layman person, and again subject to the dynamics of your family circumstances, subject to the dynamics of your assets, I prefer to have one will that takes care of all.
Okay.
And the reason why I say this, that to avoid any confusion, to
Yes.
avoid any misrepresentation, you don't want your personal will and business will kills one another, because whenever you write a will, there will be a clause to say that any wills that I've written before supersede the one that you're going to write now.
Right.
So if it's being drafted properly and if it's being carefully managed, in the sense that if you would want to have two wills in place, the personal and the business will, then you got to make sure that your personal will don't kill your business will, your business will don't kill your personal will.
Yeah.
So this has to be done or administered properly, having lawyers in place to make sure that, you want to make sure that it's a unified instrument.
Yes.
Yeah. So again, it goes back to preference, right? But for any normal person, I and again subject to your assets and your family dynamic, I would prefer to have one will to take care of everything.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's clear.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about financial literacy for a little bit. Traditionally, women are not as sound or are not as educated. Well, at least for me. And studies have shown 90% of women leave their financial decisions to their spouse. When I found out about this figure, 90%, I find it very, very sad. I am in one of those. Well, I used to be. Until the last few years, I have decided to educate myself a little bit more about finance.
Right.
My personal finance, my business finance, and then my estate and investments, all of these things. Because when I was 25, my father passed away and he died in his sleep. And so nobody knew he was coming because he was not ill. He just left us.
Right.
That left my mother and I not just in shock, but especially for my mother, she was left financially debilitated. My father had a will. He was extremely organized. He had an executor. Everything was in place. However, my parents were expats here. Being a foreigner here, the rules are not the same as being Malaysian locals, right? My husband is local. We didn't realize that it took us 2 years to get a grant of probate. And that grant of probate is basically a piece of paper and a certificate to release your assets. And that comes from the court, from the judge, right? So for 2 years, we had no access to my father's funds, anything at all, because they did not have a joint account. And I had just started my career, so I really didn't have money. You know, Faz, it was a really horrible time for both my mother and I. And I was overseas when this happened. I had to borrow money from my friends. I had to borrow 25,000 ringgit to pay for his funeral. The thing about death is that, and at the time, even though my father was organized, we couldn't grieve properly. I had to fly in, fly out. Of course, I flew in for his funeral, but at the same time, I couldn't really have time to grieve properly because I had to deal with the banks. I had to deal with the lawyers. And by this time, my mother was in no state of mind to deal with all the administrative bits. I had to do it, and I had no clue. So for those of us listening, there is a message here, is that it's so important to have your administration, whether it's for your family, your parents, yourself, your spouse. It's important, isn't it, Faz?
It is.
Can you also tell us or advise us, what could my father have done better so that my mother and I, and for other families, they are able to grieve properly and not have to deal with the stress of admin management?
I'm so sorry that you had to go through that.
That's okay.
Really.
I learned.
I know it's a very difficult situation for families to go through this, because, knowing that, you have lost your loved one, and father, your pillar, right? And the good thing here is he had a will in place.
Yeah.
So that's a good plus point here.
Yeah. And he had an executor.
And he had
that
an
he
executor,
nominated.
the appointed executor to help to do the administration and to make sure that the assets can be collected and all those things. But to address the part where over the last in the course of that 2 years before the assets being given to you and your mom, where do you find the funds? Because all assets are frozen the moment you passed on.
Yeah.
Right? So yes, you have the will in place, which is good. But you got to wait for at least 2 years to get the surat kuasa, we call it, the grant of probate, to be out before your executor can go and claim all of your deceased asset. So this is where I think people have to also get this knowledge and understand.
Yeah.
Writing a will is one thing, right? Now, your will could be as simple as, I would like to give my movable and immovable assets to my son, absolutely, and to my husband, X amount of money, because he's self-sufficient, So naturally, I see the trend here is the guy gives to the wife, but the wife gives to the children, right? So
that's common.
That's very common.
Right.
That's very common. But
and is that okay?
It is that it is okay. For so long that the spouse doesn't make a big fuss about it, right?
Okay.
But so when you write that, right? So the next thing that a person should also know. So during your lifetime, you are the person that responsible to your assets and your liabilities. You are the person who knows what list bank account you have, what sort of liability outstanding that you got to pay. And of course, in terms of, if you have debts with other personal debts with people, only you have that information. Normally, you don't share it with anybody. Right? Even if you were to share with your spouse to say, hey, like myself, my husband, I would tell him that, I have accounts in Maybank, in all those financial institutions, but where would the executor get that information? Right? So this is where I always emphasize to everyone, when you write a will, it can be as simple as possible, but make sure you have an inventory in place.
Right.
right? Make sure you document somewhere that you have the list of your assets, yeah, the list of your properties. Because bearing in mind, in Malaysia, unfortunately, this thing is still not unified in the system.
Right.
Right? So there's no system in Malaysia that caters that you key in your name, then all your assets, all your properties can be located.
Right.
Right? So for the banks, yes, the executor can write into the banks and get information. But what about properties? Right? If you don't have the title of the properties, the details of the properties, then you would never know. Right? So how do you ensure you pass down this information to your executor or even to your family members to make sure that what you have? So this is where I also advocate people to understand and to realize the importance of having this inventory in place. So I also agree to what Wahini Capital is currently doing. You know, they are championing on this digital world because we are in this world where we talk about, about digitalization and all those things. So you have a tool in place to help you to make your life much more easier these days, right? Everything is online now. You can key in your details. Whenever you buy any assets, just find that few seconds to just key in into your system, to just key in into your Excel spreadsheet, for example. If that's the least that you could do. And if you're already if you have already written a will, and you, for example, if you appoint Maybank Trustee as your executor and the trustee of your will, then you can always email us and update your inventory.
Got it. Great.
Right? So I think that is very, very important to shorten the period from 2 years. To you can slightly shorten that. So that's one. Second, we have instruments in place these days, right? Where while the bulk of your asset is still frozen because you need the grant of probate to unfreeze them. We have instruments such as the insurance policy, right, or even EPF for that matter. And for the Muslim, you have tabung haji, right, where you can nominate someone to withdraw that funds for you.
But so are you saying that you don't need a grant of probate to?
So because they have their statutory law itself,
right?
Like EPF, they have their law where if you nominate someone, then that person can go to EPF with your death certificate, and if you are the appointed nominated person, that person can withdraw that money
without the grant of
without
probate.
the grant of probate.
Okay.
Similarly, for tabung haji as well, for the Muslims, if you have put in your nomination, that person can just walk into tabung haji office with the death certificate. That person can withdraw that money.
Okay.
Right? Why I touch on insurance policy? So insurance policy, most of the time, they have an option for you to nominate someone. Right? So for the ease of administration, there are instruments in place that you can actually withdraw some funds of the deceased, while you wait for this to be processed.
Not the full funds, but
Not
some.
the full funds, some.
But they do.
But
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, so that is...
And is the process not as tedious as some would think? Because, again, when you're in a desperate, dire situation financially, I need this. How long does it take for you to submit to the insurance company and say, okay, I'm the nominee here?
So again, it depends on the insurance company's policies, right? But in my experience, when we went to EPF, when we help people to manage this, so usually
you, Maybank Trustees, also help with that.
Yes, because they write a will with us,
right?
So when they when that's already in place, so this is part and parcel
of
that
your service.
We sort of handhold the family members.
Oh, that's good to know.
And
okay, I'm sold. Fast.
We need that.
Yes.
And I think
we
that
need
matters.
that support.
Yeah,
because we are in an emotional wreck.
Correct. And of course, so these are the tools that any layman person can afford to do it, right? Without paying a bomb to get someone to manage
Yes.
or what. So
Yes.
if you have so this is I'm talking about a person, right? So if let's say you have a substantial amount of funds that you have put aside for rainy days, you may want to consider to set up a trust fund. You may want to consider to set up a trust.
Yep.
And that trust fund will help you and your family members during your lifetime, during your incapacitation, and of course after the lifetime to ease the beneficiaries, to ease the family members.
Yeah. So I can go and say, Faz, can I open a trust fund with Maybank Trustees?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So you give us the X amount of money.
Yep.
We hold it in trust.
Yep.
Because I'm a trustee company.
Yep.
So even if I go bust,
Yep.
right? Because I'm a trustee company, I'm bound by the Trustee Companies Act.
Yep. Yep.
Whatever under the trust fund, it will not fall under my balance sheet.
Okay.
So even if any creditors comes after Maybank Trustees, these assets are being safeguarded because the law is already there to protect this asset.
Got it.
So it ring fence from the creditors, right? So when the fund is already under a trust fund, so we are there to help to manage and safeguard it.
Okay.
Right?
So Faz, these are great information for us to know. I feel a little bit more at ease now, knowing that we're a lot more advanced than what it was nearly 20 years ago.
Yes.
What sort of contribution does Maybank Trustees, how do you communicate financial literacy to the public? Do you hold seminars? Do you host events to educate all of us, especially women, that 90% of us that leave it to our partners?
Yeah.
How do you access this 90% of women and ensure that they are literate? Because I feel now, like I feel like even though I'm not in the financial sector, it's my responsibility, especially to my children, my girls, making sure that they are aware. My eldest is 17, but this is like, I think, a ripe age for me to start educating her about finance.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that sort of education. And I think our education system, I feel, is lacking.
Yeah.
Is that.
Yeah.
Do you foresee yourself collaborating, synergizing with the likes of schools, other institutions, to create public awareness?
Yeah. So, in all honesty, I think it is not that you did not, you do not know about it. It could be because, and as what you rightly pointed out, the education system itself, when I was in school, we didn't learn all this thing, right?
No.
So this is where I think the government is also aware that this is something needs to be taught, and I think they have also reached out to financial institutions to collaborate and to make sure that enough information is being spread to the public, right? So from Maybank perspective, and from Maybank Trustee perspective, we are the largest bank in Malaysia.
Yes.
Right? We have the most branches in Malaysia.
Yes.
So these are the platforms that we have, and in trying to send across the message to people, and particularly women, that we are here for you, right? In terms of educating women particularly,
Yes.
I think this is where every leaders, right, especially in financial landscape, should take this initiative and to educate people and to share knowledge on your part, right? Because my expertise here, I talk about estate planning,
Yes.
right? There are leaders there who are well versed with financial. They should talk about that, right? Now, when you shed on the statistics of women, 90% they are not. I don't want to use the word that illiterate, but really the information was never sent across before because of the ecosystem that we have, right? So now that we know, I think it's prudent for all of us to make sure that this message is being sent across. And what we have done thus far is we have been collaborating with other women organizations like Lean In, Percaya, that we just want to make sure that women are being informed and what they need to know enough to stand on their own feet. So, as what you said earlier, that we tend to look at our spouse.
Yes.
We tend to, anything that got to do with finances, we would just turn to our spouse. And that's traditionally, that has always been the way.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong. It's nice to have somebody to take care of us,
Sure.
right?
But we need to know ourselves.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So now that women are out there, women are working, they take care of, we are in an aging population, you are taking care of your parents. So how do you ensure that you have sufficient information to make sure that you are able to stand on your own feet and be able to deal with that situation when it comes, right? So I think collaborating with partners is important.
Yes.
Right partners, I
Yes.
would say.
Yes.
It is important because when you share the same mission, I think that works wonderful. And I've seen that impact myself. Recently we just had a talk with Menteri Besar Selangor Incorporated, where all the C-suite, the leaders in that organization came forth to wanting to know what is estate planning is all about, what is financial planning is all about. So these are the initiatives that we have been doing and we continue to do it. And as part of Maybank Women Council, we believe in diversity, equality, and inclusion, and this is something that we have been championing at Maybank Group itself.
Right.
So we want to make sure that every woman gets right information, just enough for them to stand on their own feet and reach out and know that we are here for you. Yeah.
Right.
I know that's a lot, but
No.
it's I think power of education is key.
Absolutely.
And I think it's very, very important that we equip ourselves and knowledge sharing is important too,
Absolutely.
and gone were the days where you keep the information by yourself, because even if you think you want to do that, I mean, we are in a digitalization world where you Google something, you can get information.
That's
so
right.
it is more human when you can share this sort of thing to another woman, that and if you could see that woman can get out of this whole situation and be able to stand on their own feet. I think that's a true achievement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to, in the last 1 year, I said to myself, this is the year of learning. And there are a few subjects that I want to learn from. Finance is one. So I try to surround myself with people who are far cleverer than me. And, I tend to look really quite
No,
silly.
everyone has their own uniqueness and everyone has their own strength. And that's where we women have to leverage on that and make it better for everyone.
You're right.
Yeah. And more so because, especially for mothers,
Yes.
right? How do you want to make sure that your children's welfare is being taken care of?
Yeah.
People also tend to forget the appointment of guardian, right? You worry so much about your business, then what about your personal, right? How do you make sure that if anything happens to you
And your spouse.
what happens to the children?
Hmm.
So I've seen cases, especially during COVID, both parents just passed because of contracted with that disease, and the children are left behind, and you would have thought their uncle and auntie would step up to help in, but in reality, they have their own families too. So
who looks after the children then?
So we had a case where this situation happened. We had to accompany the children to go to the court, and unfortunately, the eldest son is only 21 years old, and because nobody wants to be the guardian for the children, despite the mother and the parents told them that don't worry, your aunties and your uncles are going to be there for you, he had to step up and be the father and mother for his siblings. So imagine you're putting a 21-year-old boy in a situation where he has to become an adult and become a father and mother, When we finish university, you have things to do, right? So imagine, what the boy has to go through.
So what happened?
So he had to take the role as a guardian for his siblings.
And how were you helping this
So
child?
because the father and mother has passed on at the same time, so we help the child to get the letter of administration, and because they don't have a will, so because when they don't have a will, then they have to apply the surat kuasa, which is called letter of administration, or the short form is LA, to get that and to collect all the assets and liabilities and to help the children. So in the meantime, while waiting for that to sort out, we had to reach out to Baitul Mal to get some funds for them, to help out for them to run their daily lives before they can even touch the funds. So, yeah,
That's hard.
yeah, it's emotions, right? We may think it's not important, and I must. So my mission here, right? I'm here. And as far as MTB's Maybank Trustees is concerned, all of us, everyone in my team, we just want to spread the awareness to people why planning for this is very important. Why you must at least write a will in place, right? It's something that we want to make sure that everybody is being informed about this.
Yeah. Very important. What are some of the top 2 or 3 misconceptions about finance, estate planning, and whether it's personal or corporate planning and trustees? Tell us the misconception so that we can debunk it right now.
Right. So people always come to me and say that, Faz, I'm not wealthy enough to write a will, right? And I think that is the biggest misconception, because the moment you have, especially when you have family members, when you have children, and when you have one house, one bank account, somebody has to deal with that when you're not around, right? So whether you want to put your loved one into a situation where you expect them to do the running around job, I mean, it's entirely up to the individual. But my point here is this, that the basic estate planning tools that everyone must have is a will for the non-Muslim and the wasiat instrument for the Muslims, right? So I think this is the biggest misconception, because they think that they don't have enough to write one.
Right.
Just because they have just one bank account, because when you start a job, you would have your salary account, right? There's money going in, right?
So regardless of the amount, you must have a will.
Yeah, because somebody needs to deal with your wealth.
Sure.
Somebody needs to deal with your assets, right? Whether it's one car, somebody needs to deal with your death. Because again, financial institution, they have no mercy on you.
Yes.
A debt is a debt and you got to pay. So
somebody's got to pay.
somebody's got to pay. So who's going to deal with that when you're not around, right? So this is where the importance of having the inventory in place, making sure that your will is being drawn up, right? And to make sure that you have the right executor to do the running around job.
Got it.
Yeah, because
3 key things there.
3 key things.
Okay.
Because even if, let's say, you say, you know, if I were to appoint a trustee like you, Maybank Trustee, I got to pay you a fee. Yes, of course. You know,
Is your fee high, by the way?
Well, it's affordable.
Okay, great.
Right?
Okay.
So it's affordable. So you can have an option to get your spouse to be your executor, but whether your spouse is able to do that job is a question that you have to ask yourself.
What do you advise?
I would advise you should appoint someone who can do this job, a professional like us. Or even if, let's say, you don't want to pay us, right? You should appoint someone who, because remember, if you appoint your spouse, for example, right? Or even your family member, they are all in grief at that time, right? Having to juggle that and having to, collect all your assets. I think it's a heavy thing for them to carry at that point of time.
It's a burden.
Yeah, it is a burden.
From my experience, I feel, and I know I'm not in the financial institution, nor am I the best person to advise on this, but from a personal experience, I would definitely not nominate anybody that I know. I would probably now get somebody like you to be our executor, because you're right. I think putting somebody that you know or you're very, very close to, they're also not given the time to grieve.
Yes.
One. And you're putting that pressure and that weight for them. Because I was thinking, actually, I'm going to get my best friend and my business partner, Gaia, to do it. But thinking about it now, I think it's selfish of me to think like that. And it would probably be better to get an institution like yours who's very good at this. And this is what you do.
Yes.
Right?
This is my bread and butter.
Your bread and butter.
Yeah.
You have no emotions to this.
Yes.
So you can do a great job. And it's also probably a lot faster and efficiency is there.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Faz, I want to talk to you a little bit more about your management style here. I know we've been talking a lot more about the services and debunking myths and misconceptions, but I want to know who you are, right? Who is this CEO? What's your style like? Because I often want to know, right? Why is that woman so successful? Why is she there? Like, how did she get there? And it's not by luck. You got there because you have certain skill sets that I probably don't have. Tell me a little bit more about your skill sets and your management style. Why do people stay with you?
This is like as though that I'm blowing my own trumpet.
No, you can't. No, you know what, Faz? Can I just say, it is nothing to do with that. I think women are very critical of themselves. And I think women lack in highlighting their skill sets, the achievements. And I am here to tell you, Faz, I want to know. It's not about, blowing your own trumpet. It isn't. We want to know.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. So when I was being given this role, right? And again, I'm truly blessed having an organization like Maybank, who has been supporting me throughout my journey.
You're married now.
They really put me to where I am today, really. And why I say that? Because they believe in mentoring, they believe in coaching, and And also, partly in the course of that journey of going through to be to where I am today, I learned that I like to teach people, right? And it has always been there. I used to be a part-time teacher before, after my SPM and everything, and I like the interaction, and it gives me the satisfaction when I see the knowledge that I pass down, and I see the people grow, right? And I think because of that, gives me the encouragement to take on this challenge to be the CEO, right? And I thought, during my younger days, and I always wanting to be in this financial industry because I admire my dad's friend's wife. She's an investment banker, and I used to adore her, the way how she carry herself. And here I am now, and the very fact that and people thought that a CEO, it sounds so glamour, right? But in actual fact, that when I was really given, when I was given this opportunity to take this role, I realized it's about the people, right? And this is something that I echo to what Simon Sinek has always says. Right? I love him to death,
Yeah,
and
me too.
he's my mentor from
so
far.
wise.
And he says that being a leader is not about being in charge. You are supposed to take charge of the people under you, right? So that really resonates deeply, to the way how I lead my team, right? And why I think it's a success story for me, because I've seen my team grew from 23 people to 65 people now.
Wow.
And I think I must have done something right here, to have people wanting to come and join me, because I believe in passing down the information, and most so frankly, I'm in a succession planning business. Yeah, I got to make sure that I have people there always, all the time, right? And of course, the processes has to be in place. So these are one of the transformation that I've done when I came in, and I've got good people in my team to help me out to build MTB to where it is now. Yeah, so. And I think that really helps, because when I'm really sincere in helping people, in making sure that they grow, and because when I see they grow, then they can pass down that to their people, right? So that's how I lead my team, and of course there's always ups and downs.
Sure.
They call me Mak Rimau, so I'm like their mother to some certain extent.
And Rimau means?
Rimau, Harimau, Maybank Tiger.
Oh, your the tiger mama.
Yes,
Got
yes,
it. I love that.
So we take care of each other.
Nice.
Right? So I think that's something that I have instilled, and I always tell them, teamwork and trust is very important. When you have this, then everything can work very well for everybody. Yeah.
One last question.
Yes.
Health. This is a topic that I ask all of the personalities that I interview. Like finance, it is a topic that is not highlighted enough, I feel, in so many different aspects: education, work life. People don't really talk about health, and not just the physique, but also the mental. And especially with uprising issues with mental wellness, I think it's important that you and I talk about this. How important is health to you personally, and how important is it for you to communicate this to your team? Is that part of your exercise as a leader as well, especially in such a challenging sector?
Yeah. And demanding too.
And incredibly demanding. And do you invest time for yourself and in your team to make sure that they're all healthy, not just in terms of their physiques or aesthetics, but really holistically?
Yeah, it is important. Simple as that. It's very, very important because if you don't take care of yourself, then how do you expect that you can take care of other people, right? You've seen, in airlines, you have to put on the mask for yourself first before you put on for others, right? So it is very important. And if I can just share a little bit about my journey, as I said, before I became a CEO, I was a COO. And prior to that, I was the head of fiduciary at Global Wealth Management. So during that transition, having 4 people under me to 23 to 65 now, the stress is crazy because little that I realized that it's not just the job that you have to manage, it's the people, right? So much so that at one point, I became like a monster, Frankie.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
That I'm not myself anymore.
Who were you?
Because the stress was just too high. And I started not being myself. I became like a dictator to my team.
Right.
And that's not who I am.
You were going against your values and ethos?
Yes.
Okay.
So
how did you know at that time that this doesn't feel right? I'm going against everything that I believe in and I was taught.
Correct. So for the first 7 months, when I was going through that motion, and when I myself realized this is not me, I don't shout. I don't, tell people what to do, because that's not who I am.
So you were shouting.
Yeah. So my best friend, and she came to me and she said to me, "This is not you, Faz. I think you need to take a step back, And I said, there are some certain things that I cannot share to people because of the position where I am now, and I have to carry myself, right? So that was when, when my best friend came to me and said that, "Why do I bring you to yoga?" She said that to me. I just looked at her. I said, yoga and me, that doesn't right, because I'm the type of person that I will go for power pack. I love endurance. I love bear crawl. That's what I do. I'm more on the active side. Yoga is like just too slow. And then, but I because I was searching, what is it that I need to do to bring back the old past, right? And because she knows me so well, so this is where I think the support system is very, very important. Having girlfriends is very important. Although you can have your spouse to be your best friend, but nothing beats when you have your girlfriends with you.
Yes.
So yeah, she brought me to yoga classes, and I started to like it, and of course, talking out, just to vent out, just to be yourself back, right? And also having someone that can tell you that this is not right, this is how you should be doing. The sounding board, I think it's very important for everybody to have that. So I had the opportunity to do that with her, and because of that, I look back at myself, and I beefed up my spiritual activities as well. That really helped me. And yeah, now what I do, I make sure that I allocate some time to go for my yoga class in between my work. And for my people, and I think this goes to Maybank values as well, where we believe in giving people the empowerment to do their work, at their own pace, we have this work flexible and arrangement where you can work from home. You can come to the office. So I think again, COVID has given us good lessons. These are the good lessons that you can work from anywhere, but making sure taking care of yourself is key, right? So I think this is something that I have also tell this across to my team, and they know that yes, work is important. You have deadlines. You know what is your roles and responsibility, but family comes first. Your health comes first, right? And
so you communicate this
yes,
very
all
clearly,
all the time. And just to add this, I asked my son, "Who is your best friend?" And he said, "Mama, me, myself."
Wow.
Yeah. And he sang this song, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine." He sang that song, and he said, "You must love yourself, Mama. Myself is my best friend." And that really tells me that, how important it is to take care of yourself
That's
first.
That's right.
So yeah, this is something which I share with my team, and why you must make sure you take care of yourself first. And for me, my husband, he has business in India. Most of the time he's away. So we make times. Prioritization, I know it's easy said and done, but I think we must prioritize. So like for us, we do small vacation together in Malaysia. We take a long drive, or sometimes we just do a short trip to India. India is so huge, right? So we go to to Mumbai, to Chennai, just for that small getaway, just to have that quality time, and I think that's very, very important. So yeah, that's how I dealt with it, and I think it's very, very important for everyone to have the girlfriend or the boyfriend, yeah, the one that can listen to you and who don't judge you, right? I think that's very important. The support system is very, very important. And of course, I've got loving parents and siblings that really helps as well. Yeah.
Faz, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for sharing such a unsexy topic
Yeah, it's not.
to a lot of people, but you kind of made it quite sexy.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
thank you for being very honest about who you are and what you're like and the things that you didn't like about yourself and how you wanted to change that for yourself and for the team. I think that's a very important message that a lot of leaders don't showcase because they feel and see it as a weakness rather than a quality in humanity that we all respect and admire. So I thank you so much for your time and
thank
honesty.
you so much for having me, Franki.
You're welcome. Thanks for tuning in to Business on the Rise. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep growing. Don't forget to follow us and subscribe.